Hello everyone, in this quick lecture video we're going to discuss the differences between endergonic and exergonic reactions. So these two terms, endergonic and exergonic, really are used solely to examine the amount of energy that is being either released or produced in a reaction. You could also think of them in terms of dehydration, synthesis, and hydrolysis. Alright, but we're going to use these two E terms to describe energy transactions within any type of reaction. So if we begin with an endergonic reaction, ender means in or inwards. So an endergonic reaction is going to be a reaction that is going to produce products that have more potential energy than the original reactants or initial reactants did. All right. In endergonic or exergonic reactions, there's still going to be a little bit of required energy or activation energy to start the reaction. But for an endergonic reaction, we're mainly going to look at a reaction that is going uphill, like you can see here. We're going to begin with a reactant or reactants that we're going to put together via a dehydration synthesis reaction to produce a product that is not only larger, but now has more stored potential energy within it. You could think of it in terms of a glucose and fructose molecule. Let's say, just for arbitrary sake, that each one only has 20 calories apiece, so 20 plus 20 is 40. But if you expend a little bit of energy, so it says again requires energy, right? So pretend that there's like a little activation energy hump right here where my laser pointer is going. So you input a little energy to connect glucose and fructose, and now you end up producing sucrose, which if you break it down entirely could give you at least 100 calories. Which would be 60 more than I said each glucose and fructose could give you. So it's a beneficial relationship. All right, so you can see that any graph that's kind of tending upwards, that's going to be an endergonic reaction, and you're producing a product that has more potential energy than whatever it is you started with. One other thing to take note of, endergonic reactions will generally feel cold to the touch because they're taking in thermal energy from the surrounding environment to help propel this reaction to make a product that is going to have more potential energy. So their initial energy intake could be from the heat of the environment, leading to something feeling cold. Like if you activate an ice packet, if you have an injury, that is actually an endergonic reaction that you feel a cold temperature. Now, if we want to go the other route of an exergonic reaction, we're now up here, right? Well, now we're going to do like a roller coaster, and we're going to go back down. And the products that we make this time are going to have less energy than what we began with. So that's an exergonic reaction. Exer means outward. So this type of reaction is going to release energy overall. It's going to look just like what we discussed the other day in our other lecture video where we were looking at activation energy. Before I proceed up here, you can see, all right, here's a reactant. Let's say that's sucrose. All right, I'm going to have an initial input of energy to be able to start breaking it down. But once I do, my products have less potential energy than what I began with at this point. So these types of reactions, again, are going to release energy. So the products, as I just mentioned, will have less energy overall than what I began with, whatever the initial reactants were. So maybe I'm going from starch to individual carbon dioxide and water molecules from the process of cell respiration. There's still an initial input of energy, but my reactant that I began with, starch, is going to have more potential energy than what I begin with down here, which would be carbon dioxide and water. And lastly, just as endergonic reactions felt cold as you used thermal energy to build bonds and make larger molecules, with an exergonic reaction, you're actually going to now release energy as bonds are being broken. The reason being is that no reactions are ever 100% efficient as you break them down to release energy. So a lot of this heat energy is just wasted energy that a cell perhaps was never able to fully absorb and make use of. So the heat being released is wasted energy. If you put your hand to your forehead right now and you feel your head, it's warm, right? Well, that's heat that's being given off from, you name it, reaction that's going on in your body in which you were not able to absorb that energy being released. So that heat you feel is wasted energy. Energy is not created nor destroyed. So if you don't use it, you simply convert it into another form and release it. And that's what the heat is. So again, in closing here, we can see that an exergonic reaction is going downhill, giving off energy, where the products have less energy than what we began with. Endergonic would be then going uphill, where whatever product that I produce from the original reactants will now have more potential energy than we began with. One final way to look at this before we're done is if I pull up this little animation, and we can take a quick look at how this proceeds.
When cells convert energy from one form to another, there is a change in the amount of potential energy available to them. When a reaction is endergonic, there is less potential energy in the reactants than there is in the products. Endergonic reactions require energy input. When a reaction is exergonic, there is more potential energy in the reactants than there is in the products. Exergonic reactions release energy. Click the buttons to see examples of important endergonic and exergonic reactions.
So you can see that we began with endergonic reactions need some energy input, but the products you make have more potential energy. And exergonic is vice versa. Whatever you begin with, the products will have less potential energy. So we look at some specific examples.
Carbon dioxide and water can be combined to form glucose, oxygen, and water. But there's more bond energy in glucose than there is in carbon dioxide and water. For this reason, carbon dioxide and water don't spontaneously combine to form glucose. The reaction proceeds only if there is an energy input. In photosynthetic cells, sunlight supplies the necessary energy.
So again, for this reaction, we're taking 6 carbon dioxide molecules as well as 12 water molecules. They have very little potential energy stored in them by themselves, so there's nothing that really is pushing them to combine. So plants are going to use light energy, so the energy input here wouldn't be thermal, it would be light. That light energy is used to create glucose, all right, as well as 6 oxygens. This would be a waste product of photosynthesis. But now from this glucose molecule, if you break this down, you're going to be able to see later on that you can get upwards of 38 ATP molecules from it. Way more than you would get from either of these numbers of molecules down below. Now, exergonic again would be the reverse.
In the presence of oxygen, glucose can be broken down to form carbon dioxide and water. The products of this reaction have less bond energy than glucose, so the reaction releases energy. Because this reaction is energetically favorable, it will run spontaneously. All cells, including photosynthetic ones, release energy for cellular work by carrying out this reaction.
All right, so he said more favorable reaction. You have a molecule of glucose. I'd mentioned before for the endergonic that glucose, if you break this down, you can get 38 ATP molecules, which is the energy currency of our cells. That is a lot from just one molecule here. So as this is being broken down, you're releasing energy. It's going to be in the form of what I mentioned, ATP. And now our products, the 6 CO2 and 6 waters, by themselves have nowhere near that potential amount of energy to make 38 ATPs as they would have if they were connected together in one full large glucose molecule. All right, if you have any questions, be sure to ask during class, next opportunity that you have. Thank you.